Hello, biology students, and welcome to the second part of genetics. We're calling it Genetics Part 2, Non-Mendelian Genetics and Pedigrees. Today I'll be going over incomplete dominance, codominance, and multiple alleles. So what we're looking at here is variations on what Mendel found, or non-Mendelian genetics. Mendel's principles are valid for all sexually reproducing species. However, often the genotype does not dictate the phenotype in the simple way his principles describe. So his principles say if you are showing the recessive phenotype, then you must have a homozygous recessive genotype. And if you are showing the dominant phenotype, then you either have a homozygous dominant genotype or a heterozygous genotype, but there are variations on this. So what we're going to talk about first is incomplete dominance. Complete dominance is what Mendel was working with in his P's. Complete dominance is the type of inheritance when the phenotype of a dominant homozygote or heterozygote are identical. In incomplete dominance, this is inheritance where the phenotype of a heterozygote is intermediate between the phenotypes determined by the dominant and recessive traits. So in our face lab, we called this the traits that were a blend. So the phenotype looks like something in between the dominant and recessive genotypes or phenotypes. So let's look at incomplete dominance in snapdragons. They're a great example of incomplete dominance. In snapdragons, if they are red, they show the homozygous dominant genotype. If they are pink, they show a heterozygous genotype. And if they are white, they are homozygous recessive. So the heterozygotes are individuals that have less red pigment than the homozygous dominant individuals. So they look pink because they're making less red pigment. And the phenotype of the hybrid is different from both homozygotes. Let's look at this in people. So again, hair texture is an example of incomplete dominance. In hair texture, if you are homozygous dominant, you have curly hair. If you are homozygous recessive, you have straight hair. And if you are a heterozygote, that's what we have here, you have wavy hair. So you show an intermediate phenotype in between the dominant and recessive phenotype. So here we have a father with wavy hair, a mother with wavy hair, both heterozygotes. They have a 1/4 chance of having an offspring with curly hair, a 1/4 chance of having an offspring with straight hair, and a 50% chance of having offspring with wavy hair. Another example of non-Mendelian genetics is codominance. Codominance is when both alleles are expressed. Neither are dominant or recessive. There is no intermediate phenotype. So codominance is, you could say neither are dominant, or you could also say both are dominant, they both show. So roan coat in cows and horses is a great example of codominance. Sometimes they're called strawberry roan. And what we have here is a red allele and a white allele, and they are both being expressed equally. So the individual that is a heterozygote, one that has both the red and the white alleles, appears pink because both alleles are being expressed equally, and that's codominance. The last thing that we're going to talk about today in non-Mendelian genetics is multiple alleles. For some genes, there are more than 2 alleles. These genes have multiple alleles. So although a single organism may carry at most 2 different alleles because we're diploids, more than 2 possible alleles exist in the population. And blood type is a great example. For blood types, there's type A, there's type B, there's type AB, and there's type O. And there are 3 alleles here. There's the A allele, the B allele, and little I is the O allele. So A and B are both codominant. They're both expressed when present. And O is represented as little I, and that is recessive. So what we're going to do here is we're going to shrink this up for a second and just look at these different phenotypes and what genotypes can create those phenotypes. So again, we have type A, type B, type AB, and type O. So again, the A allele is expressed as a big IA, or represented as a big IA. And then I'm going to make these big I's like that. The B allele is big I, B, and O is represented as a little I. So if you're type A blood, you could be big I, A, AA, or you could be A, and then have that O recessive allele, and both of those genotypes would produce the A, type A blood phenotype. If you're type B, you could be BB, or you could be BO, and again, not express that O phenotype, instead express the B phenotype because B is dominant. If you are AB, there's only one genotype possible, and that is genotype AB. They're both being expressed. This is where we see their codominance. Okay, now if you're type O, you're showing the recessive trait there, and so you have to be little I, or OO. Okay, let's move on. So this is just showing you what happens in the body when you have a particular blood type. So if you are blood type A, you may know that you can only receive type A blood. You can't receive type B blood or type AB blood. So if you are type A, it means that you have certain antigens on the surface of the cell, and these antigens are often carbohydrates, and they identify the cell. The antibodies bind to antigens in the body, and they recognize foreign antigens and help the immune system get rid of foreign material. So if you have type A blood, your body produces type B antibodies. So if you have type A blood, type B blood is foreign to you, and your body will reject it. And these are little proteins here, antibodies, that will attach to type B blood if it's present and cause it to cause the blood to coagulate, cause it to clump together, and make it very difficult for your body then to pump blood through the blood vessels. And it's a way that the body has of getting rid of what it sees as foreign. If you have type B blood, you have type A antibodies, which means that you would reject type A blood. And you can see that those little concave interiors match the shape of the antigen on type A blood. If you have type AB blood, that means that you don't have any antibodies present for A or B blood because you would never want to reject your own blood. If you had type A antigens in a person with AB blood, the type A antigens would cause the rejection of their own blood. And then if you're type O, that means that you don't have any antigens on the blood cells. And so that also means that you have both type B antibodies and type A antibodies. And so if you have type O blood, you see on the exterior here, there are no antigens. That means that if someone donates type O blood, they can give it to anybody because there are no antigens to be recognized. So another person's immune system won't recognize those blood cells as being different. So type O blood, or people with type O blood, are oftentimes called universal donors because they can give to anybody. People with type AB blood are oftentimes called universal acceptors because they can accept any type of blood. Okay, great. So this is just a chart that summarizes the different phenotypes here, the blood types, the genotypes that will produce those different phenotypes, those different blood types, what antibodies are present in their body, and then what happens to their blood when exposed to different types of blood, different from their own. So again, someone who has type O blood has both A and B antibodies present. So if they mix with their own blood type, that's fine. But if they mix with any other blood types, AB or AB, the antigens on the AB and AB blood will react with the antibodies in their own bloodstream and cause clumping. So what you see there is blood that's clumping. And again, this is just summarizing those different ideas and multiple alleles and blood types again. It then also describes who different blood types can donate to. And then finally, what you might find interesting is that it talks about the frequency of these different blood types in the population. I assume this is the population of the United States. So the most common blood type is actually type O. 46% of the population has type O blood. Next is type A blood, which is 40% of the population. The rarest type of blood would be AB, which is just 4% of the population. So if you have type O blood, if you ever find out that you do, it's definitely a good thing to give blood because it helps save lives. Thank you. I hope you enjoyed the video.